Who are we voting for? Meet the candidates. Who Are We Voting For was created so we could understand who the candidates are and what they are about. This is not an endorsement for any candidate. This is for the voter to be more educated about who we're voting for.
Hello, I'm Carmen Robinson, and I'm born and raised in the city of Pittsburgh. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I'm also an entrepreneur. I run a transportation company where my clients are disabled children. Also, this is my second career. I have a couple of careers. My first career, I was a Pittsburgh police officer. And I remember when I told my father that I wanted to apply for the Pittsburgh Police Force. I had just finished college, and I'll digress a little bit. I finished high school in less than 3 years, and I finished undergrad in less than 3 years. So when I decided that I wanted to get onto the Pittsburgh Police Force, I was 88 pounds, barely 5 feet tall. My father was a city firefighter, and he looked the part of a city firefighter, big, strapping, white shoulder, small waist. To me, he looked like Superman, and he really was Superman. And he says, no, not my daughter. My daughter's not going to be. I sent my daughter to college. You're going to get a college job. You're going to be somewhere white collar. You're going to be in an office building. And I said, Dad, I really want to be a Pittsburgh police officer. I really believe that I can make a difference. And at the time that I was telling him this, I was getting ready to turn 20, and the Pittsburgh police did not have an age requirement. And I had finished college. I had gone on to several interviews, and people were treating me like I was 14, probably because I looked like I was 14. And I wasn't getting any interviews beyond the first one. However, I was driving in my brown Chevy Chevette, and I heard a advertisement for the Pittsburgh Police Force on Whammo, and they were pushing for African American women at the time. And so it just sounds so interesting. So I went to my father because he was a city worker, and my father was one of many firsts, being an African American male on the fire department. I thought that talking to him, maybe he could help me go forward on this. And he wasn't hearing it. He was not going to participate in it. He told me that I was going to fail the physical fitness because I'm 88 pounds. Although I could run all day, I certainly couldn't carry anybody, or I couldn't arrest anybody. And I had never had a fight one day in my life. And I was pretty much at the time a pacifist because I had participated on campus as a pacifist. And my father thought we were lunatics then, just pacifists, and he just didn't see his daughter out there arresting what he called criminals. And so I never talked to him about it again, and I went and applied, and I didn't tell him when I got my day for the test, and I took the test. And then they called me for the psychological. Now, my mother knew the whole entire time, and I swore her to secrecy, and she thought it was funny because we were pulling one over my father. And so we went through the whole process, and I got the letter, and my mother didn't give it to me. She gave it to my father. And I recall coming home from hanging out with friends, and he was on, when you walk through the front door, you saw the steps go straight upstairs, and he's sitting on the steps, and he's in tears, and I'm laughing because he's in tears. And I have no idea what he's in tears for. And I asked what's going on. I'm thinking at the time my grandmother was in and out of the hospital. I'm thinking something had happened. And he goes, "You defied me. I told you not to do this." And so I instantly knew what it was. And I went up to him and I said, "But Dad, I wanted to prove myself." And eventually, he was proud. Eventually, and I'm going to tell you another funny story. He took me to go buy shoes. I needed to get these shoes for the academy, and they needed to be black shoes, and they needed to be steel-toed. At the time, I had a 3.5 size foot, and we couldn't find any steel-toe shoes. But I needed to show up on that first day to the academy in black shoes. So my dad took me to a shoe store in Lawrenceville on Butler Street, and it was a Buster Brown shoe store. And on the bottom of the shoes was an orange Nickelodeon. And so I attended the first, I want to say, month of the academy in those Nickelodeon shoes. Nobody knew until I volunteered to be the CPR dummy on the table. And I laid on the table and my feet turned up and everybody laughed. And I instantly knew that they had saw that I had Nickelodeon shoes. I believe the skills for the Court of Common Pleas, it's a trial court. And because it's a trial court, you should have trial experience. You should have tried cases in front of a jury. You should have had bench trials. You should have tried some of the most serious cases in the criminal court. You should have also worked in family court as well as in civil court. And I've done all three of those things. Also, you have to be able to understand the law and be able to articulate it and interpret it, which is important because that's all judges really do, is interpret the law. I was a law clerk for a total of 11 years. I worked on the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania for one of those years, and then 10 years split between two judges, the Honorable Dwayne Woodruff and the Honorable Kim Berkeley Clark. And when you work as a law clerk, you research the law for those judges and you draft their legal opinions. And you also sort of get to sit behind them and understand how they make their decisions, which is important. So you get a glimpse into what it is like to do the judge's job. Also, it's very important to have life practical experience. The fact that I have been a Pittsburgh police officer for 15 and a half years and have worked in all the zones in the city of Pittsburgh and have seen almost everything, almost every tragedy. I've seen babies be born as well, which is something that's a blessing and happy. And I've protected some of our national politicians in the criminal intelligence unit. It's important to have very diverse experience. It's important to have been on the ground floor and understand the discretion of the police officer, to understand how they came to their decision to make an arrest. Also, to understand the BS, because I want to tell you something. In Pittsburgh, African Americans are 13.5%. However, in the county jail, 68%. If you're in the criminal court on any given day, you'll see that defendants are mostly African American or people of color. As a judge, you want to understand why that takes place. I'll tell you something. I grew up in Stanton Heights, and I now live in the historic Hill District. My son grew up in the historic Hill District. African Americans or people of color or poor people, they want police in their community. They need police in their community. However, they don't want to be over-policed. And having all of these experiences and being a member of that group and understanding all sides of an issue, it just really adds to the judge's ability to make a fair and reasonable and sound decision. I also think the fact that I'm an adjunct professor where I teach some of the upcoming greatest minds, and the fact that they look at things outside the box adds to the way that I would see things come before this court, because I've been doing this 20 years. It's nice to hear from people that haven't done this yet and they have a fresh take on a perspective. The reason why I believe I should run for judge now of the Court of Common Pleas of Allegheny County, again, it's another take on myself having the most diverse experience. I think it's important not to just be a district attorney in a robe. We have enough district attorneys in robes on that bench. Not that I would necessarily go into the criminal court bench or the criminal court side of the bench. It could be family division. And family division is super important simply because it's where our kids go, our juveniles go when they're charged with a crime. You have an opportunity to divert them from the system. And having this diverse experience and understanding how a criminal record can impact somebody younger and it could change their lives. And I think that being that I have that experience, that it's diverse, that it's an ability to understand how somebody found themselves in a situation, and that, you know, maybe this time we give them a second chance, we have some mercy. It's important to have candidates that understand that when a certain community, whether it be poor or black or brown, is over policed, that means they're not getting that second or third chance. Whereas some other communities that aren't minorities, maybe the police allows discretion at that level, and that youth or that young adult doesn't come into contact with the government and wind up with a record. That blessing that that officer showed them changes lives for that person. What I'd like to see happen is the same thing happen for poor, black, and brown. And I feel that I'm set to understand that and to provide that. I believe in the specialty courts, but our specialty courts don't go far enough. You can go to a specialty court, which is maybe drug court, or we have a court even for prostitution. We have a court for DUIs. We have courts for veterans. But what I've seen, especially for veterans, we have courts for them, but they still wind up with criminal records. And that criminal record really stunts growth and changes lives. I believe that a judge candidate can do more to give those times where we need discretion, because it changes lives. It's important to understand how the impact and the consequences of a criminal record can ruin someone's life. So having that experience, I believe, qualifies me for the position, especially today. Everywhere I've been for the last month and a half to 2 months, everyone is asking for change. Everyone's asking for what we're going to do different. Well, I'm not the status quo candidate. And, you know, my mother and father, they repeat the old adage that crazy is doing the same thing and expecting something different. I'm not the status quo candidate. I'm here to say what's happening here in the United States as well as locally isn't right. Due process is important. When you grab people and you put them on a plane and you don't tell the courts who they are, and you say that they're gang members, or you say that they are illegal immigrants, but you don't prove it, you don't give the person due process. Due process is everything, especially here in America. I'm here to guarantee that everyone gets due process. I'm not putting my finger on a scale. I'm not making any decision other than, does everyone get due process? And that answer should be yes. Without due process, that means anybody can grab you off the street and put you in jail and don't have to prove anything. You should have a right to have your day in court and say, hey, why am I being held? And then you have a right to push back. Due process is what is important today, and it'll be important tomorrow. And if we don't stand by it, then we're not Americans. You want your candidate to just really get it, to understand common sense and understand practical experiences. All of the candidates coming before you will understand the law, will know the law inside and out. We graduated from law school and we passed the bar. That's the level of competency all candidates have. But you also want a candidate to bring their personal experiences that look like yours. Because remember this, the law is just words on a page. Those words do not come alive until a judge interprets them. So how a judge decides a matter, and it's based on the law as well as all that he or she brings to the table. You want somebody with diverse experience. You want somebody that has not been a prosecutor 30 years. You know, being a prosecutor is a strong background and is remarkable, but you also want someone that's been a defense attorney. You also want somebody that understands the police. You also want somebody that's been a law clerk and has gotten intimately involved in the way a judge makes a decision. That's a law clerk. So it's important to understand what goes into a decision, and it's a lot of personal and professional. And again, choose wisely. And I'm asking that you would consider my qualifications, and if you thought my qualifications matter to you and resonate with you, then I'll ask for your vote. Thank you.